Hello, Internet, and welcome to another episode of Holy Crap, what are you going to complain about now? Milkshakes? No. Today we're going to be talking about Acclaim, one of the craziest video game companies to ever live. From their humble beginnings of stealing ideas from Activision and Atari, to their outlandish PR stunts that caused the demise of their company. This one's going to be interesting. Now let's get right into it. Acclaim got its start in New York in 1987 after its founders Greg Fishback, Robert Holmes, and Jim Skoroscopy left Activision. They took Activision's idea of creating a company alphabetically ahead of their previous developers, like Activision did to Atari. And real quick, I want to talk about Atari and how Atari was the hippies' dream job. There were drugs and parties and sex all over the place, and you could come and go as you please whenever you wanted to make a video game. And everything was well in Atari until they released a very heavily marketed game in 1983, E.T., that was so bad that it literally caused a crash in the video game market, and it didn't get picked back up until 1985 with the NES. I knew E.T. was bad, but I didn't know it was topple an entire industry bad. E.T. Destroy Atari. Anyways, back to Acclaim. Acclaim started out as a video game publisher, meaning they didn't actually create many of their popular games. They would take these already finished games and develop ports for them for the home systems like the NES and the Game Boy. And the company really started to make waves in the 1990s when they became one of the most profitable companies in the entire industry, with profits rising above hundreds of millions of dollars. And the reason they got there is because they would license off large names like The Simpsons and WrestleMania in order to sell their games. And they continued that model for years to come. In 1993, Acclaim hit it big with Midway's Mortal Kombat for the home entertainment systems like the SNES. And with that big money came big attention to the video game industry as a whole. Parents were very upset that they thought video games were so violent, Mortal Kombat in particular, they could cause adverse effects to their children. Yes, Acclaim is the reason why parents think that video games cause violence. There was such a big outcry for congressional oversight in the video game industry that the ESRB was created in 1994 to help keep violent video games from getting into the hands of minors, which totally worked, and we don't have little kids playing video games like Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row all the time. In 1994, Midway created NBA Jam, which Acclaim then took and published to the home consoles, and it became one of the most popular arcade games of all time, subsequently creating the genre of sports video games that we've come to know and hate, or love. Fun story about NBA Jam: Acclaim realized how popular this game was and hatched an idea to steal the rights away from Midway. They sent a developer, Greg Lasson, to work at the NBA publishing department, and then convinced the Midway heads, the higher-ups, that they wanted to work on new, innovative things, meaning that they gave away the NBA Jam name, which they promptly handed over to Acclaim, and Acclaim promptly ran that video game name straight into the ground. In 1995, Acclaim created the NFL Quarterback Club, which was one of the few games to try and compete with the Madden series, and it had help from one of the big names in the football announcer market, Marv Albert, who would later go on to lose his job as an announcer because of a very public and very crazy sexual assault case. If you've never heard of Marv Albert, I highly recommend you looking up his trial. It is insane. He is crazy. The dude's a biter. Regardless of the controversies, Acclaim made millions of dollars off of those games, and in turn purchased some big-name studios like Sculptured Studios, Iguana Entertainment, and Probe Entertainment. They also purchased the exclusive rights to create Taito's games, the creators of Space Invaders, in the Western Hemisphere. And they also created their own motion capture studio in-house, which was the first in video game history. And they created a bunch of big-name titles with all the licenses that they had acquired over the years, like Maximum Carnage, the Batman Forever game, and the Spawn game, which were just a few of them. And then in 1997, they hit it big again with Turok the Dinosaur Hunter, which was an adaptation from a comic book series that they bought in 1994, originally called Valiant Comics. Shortly after these good times, Acclaim found itself in a few financial binds. The first being that WWE abandoned its licensing ideas with Acclaim in favor of THQ. And then Acclaim partnered with ECW to create 2 video games right before ECW declared bankruptcy, still owing Acclaim millions of dollars in licensing fees. Also, Acclaim had multiple PR stunts go south as they were poorly thought out and for lack of a better word, really dumb. Just really dumb. Not only that, but they were also on the receiving end of multiple lawsuits, which caused their inevitable downfall. But before that end, I want to talk about these PR stunts and the lawsuits. So let's get right into it. So, starting with number one, Acclaim offered to pay the speeding tickets for people caught speeding on the day of the release of Burnout 2, which was such a bad idea that the government called them and told them, hey, that's inciting speeding, do not do that, and they had to retract their statement. They painted Virtua Tennis on homing pigeons and trained them to land on the Wimbledon court during the tournament. And when Wimbledon spokespeople found out about this, they quickly disavowed such an action and also said that they were training hawks to kill these billboard advertisements, which sounds like something from a movie, but it actually happened. That is mind-bogglingly dumb. They offered to pay $10,000 to any parent that decided to change their kid's name to Turok after their video game Turok Evolution was coming out, which some people said they claimed, but actually they were all paid actors. They offered to pay relatives of the recently deceased to put advertisements for their game Shadow Man 2 on their tombstones, which is so crazy and such in poor taste that everybody got mad at that one. They also created ads that leaked blood for 6 days for their video game Gladiator Sword of Vengeance, which they had to get people to clean these bloody posters, which has got to be one of the weirdest job titles ever. Hey, do you like cleaning? Do you also like blood? Well, we've got a job for you. Also, BMXXX was just like a huge PR stunt, like the whole game, which actually brings us to our next point. Speaking of BMXXX, Dave Mirra, who the company had used multiple times to market their popular Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX, sued the company over that game, alleging that it had damaged his image. Acclaim changed the type of game, it being a more tongue-in-cheek mature game, to a pornographic game with nudity being the selling point, only after Dave Mirra signed on to the game. They also got sued by Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen because they signed a licensing agreement with the two twins in order to make video games based off of their likeness and names. After the games did not do well, Acclaim then got sued by the twins because they had yet to pay a dime in licensing fees for over 4 years. They also got sued by one of their developers, Sculptured Studios, after they broke their own contract by randomly firing off like half of the studio. And they only offered a severance package to those jobless devs if they agreed not to sue them for damages. And then also, in 2004, they got sued by their investors after they noticed a pattern of abuse by the top execs, awarding themselves large salaries and bonuses through indirect companies, which is illegal and against the SEC guidelines. And also, they commonly lied to their investors, saying that their value was way higher than it actually was, all the way up until their bankruptcy in 2004. And that is the sad end to our tale of Acclaim, the craziest video game studios to ever exist. I hope you learned something, because I know I did. The Billboard thing still blows my mind. I think that's absolutely crazy that they did that thing. Or at least you found some of the stories interesting. Now you know how not to run a video game company. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you have a good day. Make sure to like and subscribe. Peace.